Okay, we can do all things. We're flexible. I'd like to introduce my friend and the moderator of this panel, and Mary Poplin. And Mary is someone like me that left academia. Well, she didn't leave academia. She had a midlife Christian conversion. And so we share that in common. And we're both university professors, and Mary is still a university professor. She's going to moderate the panel and also contribute to the panel. And sorry about the confusion. So Mary, you turn your attention here, please.
Okay.
Focus, 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 focus.
That's what happens to university professors.
So this is the morning panel that was supposed to start at 10, but because of airline flights, we're starting this panel early. And Mary Poplin, my book, Be the People, A Call to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise, well, that was written at her apartment in California, was drafted there, where I had gone for what was meant to be at the time, and a weekend visit, and I ended up staying like 6 weeks. I didn't have my mother at the time, and I finished that manuscript after not having been able to write in Nashville. And so when you read Be the People, A Call to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise, you have to thank Mary for that, because she was like my slave driver. She had strict rules, and some of the rules were that we would write in the morning. And I never thought I could write in the same room with someone else. So Mary had one computer on one side of the wall and another computer on another side, and we would write until 9 to 12, and then we would spend the afternoons playing, going to museums, hiking. And so that book got done because she would say, "Get off social media." No, you have to finish the book. The book is too important not to finish. And so she is responsible for that book. And so I introduce you to Mary Poplin, my slave driver.
I think I was nicer than that. Anyway, the book got done, and it's a beautiful book, as are all of her books. And Carol is just an amazing person. I'm probably her best fan, and I am a university professor until the end of February. I have been there for 40 years, and it's time for me to write a book, right? So write a little more. But I'm very excited about today's panel, and even the question: reform or exit the public schools. I think that we have actually representatives on our panel of both sides, somebody who's trying to work inside the public schools, and then people from outside. And we're going to start with Pastor Stephen Broden, who is a pastor who has degrees from the University of Michigan, Dallas Theological Seminary. He is the founder of an amazing church in Dallas called Fair Park Bible Church, and he's been there for 18 years. His church works with family assistance, economic opportunities. He's the co-host of a radio show, and he's very active in what, I don't know if everybody knows about this, the Black pro-life movement, the movement in the Black community to stop abortion inside that community. Amen. He also works with other pastors regarding teaching them about the culture wars. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Pastor Stephen Broden.
Well, good morning, and I'm glad to be here with you on this important occasion. I believe we're in the midst of a very urgent hour. Our nation is under threat. And in order for us to rescue this republic, it's going to require of us to be engaged and engage with an intent to turn things around. They must be turned around. And first of all, let me do a slight correction. My mother would want me to do this. It's Stephen, not Stephen. The PH in my name makes an F sound. Stephen, not a V. But that's something Mama taught me a long time ago. But to get back to the point, and my time is limited, so I'm going to try to rush through a lot of this. But I'm going to set it up by giving you a motivation for why we are here today. Most of us who are here on the panel, and certainly Dr. Swain, are operating with a sense of urgency. And part of our effort, mine in particular as a pastor, is to provide information, education in order to activate. There is no activation unless there's information and education. Information asks and answers the question, what's going on? And unfortunately in America, too many of us who are citizens of this great land are oblivious as to the intensity and the threat that is coming at us from every aspect of our culture. So the first step, I think, for all of you and many of us here who are engaged is to inform. And part of what we're doing here is to inform. Education is this next question. It asks and answers the question, why is this happening to us? How could it be in the land of the free and the home of the brave that we're fighting off tyranny? There's a reason for that. And I'm going to try to give you some of that in a few moments. Why it is. We have been under an assault from the turning of the 19th century to the 20th century. This didn't happen under Barack Obama, by the way. This has been coming at us for a very long time. Some of us know about the Fabian Socialist, the Fabian Society, and how they engaged the aristocrats and the intelligentsia and flipped them into socialists. And they've been coming at us for a long time. We're at the apex or at the culmination of a long march towards socialism in America. Out of information, education comes activation. No activation if you're not informed. No activation if you're not engaged or educated. Most women in here know what empty activation is all about. You take a pot of water, you sit it on the stove, you turn the fire on. What happens? The water boils. If you don't do nothing with it, what happens? It evaporates. And that's what's happening right now. A lot of us are engaged, but we don't have context. And because we don't have context, we don't know what we're doing or where we're going. And so there's a screaming need, a desperate need for us to be informed and educated. Matthew Spaulding wrote a book that is titled, We Still Hold These Truths. We Still Hold These Truths. In it, he sets forth what I believe is the roadmap for rescue of our republic. We need to start in understanding that America is has a religious-based heritage of liberty under law, and that the Constitution was written to limit the government, not the people, right? And so that's the first thing. We need to know that our Constitution is the means by which we can harness or rather capture this wild beast of socialism that is loose in our culture. We can harness him, pull him down, and put him back in the cage, the Constitution. But there are two things under assault right now in America, and most of you know that. The Constitution, who's dying a death of 1,000 cuts, and the religious institutions of America. They're in the crosshairs of the liberal left and the socialist, because those two institutions or two realities are the things that they must overcome in order to force us into hard tyranny. It was Mark Levin who says that we're in softer tyranny right now. And he, in his book titled Tyranny and Liberty, says this. He says, the remedy to tyranny is conservatism, precisely because its principles are the founding principles. Did you hear that? Its principles, conservatism, are the founding principles. It is those principles that birthed this nation into existence. It is those principles that compelled us into history as being one of the greatest nations on the planet Earth. What are those principles? And here is the problem. Most of us don't know what they are. There are 10 of them, and I'm going to share with you in a few moments what those 10 are. But we need to re-engage those principles. We need to know what they are. We need to know that there's a difference between liberty and freedom. Liberty is responsible action of freedom. Freedom is dangerous if it's not harnessed. If I have freedom to come up and take your wife, you say, no, you don't. But I say, wait a minute, I got freedom. Right? So we don't want freedom that's not controlled freedom. That's liberty. That's what we want. Amen? Amen. Amen. Now, Chuck Swindoll, who's one of the preachers that finished from my seminary, says when you say amen to a preacher, it's like saying sick 'em. Amen. I started with Matthew Spalding. Matthew Spalding says this. In his book, We Still Hold These Truths, says in his introduction, our revolution, the American Revolution, was about the idea upon which a new nation was to be established. Permanent truth, underscore the word permanent. Permanent truths applicable to all men at all times. As Abraham Lincoln later proclaimed, that the principles rather than will be the ultimate grounds of government, good government. Permanent truths. The liberals would have us know that they are ever-changing truths, that we're evolving. But that's not true for those of us who are Christians, for we know that there are immutable truths, unchanging truths that stay even now until forevermore. And so we got some truths that we need to camp on and to rescue this republic. Now, those principles, we call them the founding principles. There are 10 core principles. Number 1, get your pencils and papers out. Number 1, liberty. Number 2, equality. 3, natural rights. 4, consent of the governed. Underscore that one. Consent of the governed. That means we give consent. Come on, somebody. Number 5, religious freedom. Number 6, private property. And number 7, the rule of law, which is being undermined today, redefined into chaos deliberately. For chaos is an instrument or in the toolbox of the liberal left. Number 8, constitutionalism, and number 9, self-government, and number 10, independence. It is those principles, brothers and sisters, men and women, that will rescue this republic. That's right. And we need to reorient ourselves with it, re-engage it, and appropriate it in the public square again. Educate our children of those 10 founding principles. America is great because of those principles. And we need to exercise them, use them today to push back against this tyranny that's coming at us, unfettered and unchecked, unfortunately. The 3 branches of government right now are not working with us. Come on, somebody. And if I read the preamble to the Constitution right, it says this: we, the people, do ordain. We ordain. We didn't ordain that stuff. We ordain what is in the Constitution. So we need to get that Constitution out and look at it again. I want to share a couple of thoughts, and I'm going to sit down and allow you to cogitate a little bit. But I want to give you a couple of quotes that I think will help you to see the urgency of the hour, and that the necessity for us to respond is now, not tomorrow. You can't look at this problem and say amen and then go sit down. And may I say to you, I love America and the dream that compels us, but I'm not sleep. For nothing comes to a sleeper but a dream, and when he wakes up, that's gone. Come on, somebody. Stop telling me about the American dream and start living it out or fleshing it out daily. Right? American dream has too many people asleep right now, and most of us are in pursuit of that dream, and it has turned from liberty to materialism, and we're in pursuit of materialism, which will drive us into the ground and make us vulnerable and susceptible to manipulation. Too many of us are selling America out right now. A lot of our technology is going to Germany because Americans are, or to Russia because, or to China, all of them, because of our people are selling it to them. They have no morals. No morals. Our morals have gone. Now listen to this. This is a quote from John Dewey. I hope I'm not taking this from Alec. John Dewey says he was a socialist and he was a signer of the Human Manifesto, education as a process of socializing children rather than educating them to achieve their individual potential. He says it's socialization. Your schools have changed your children to be a little socialist. They hate capitalism. Ask your teenagers, what's wrong with socialism? The Humanist magazine in 1983 said this. It featured an article that posted, "The battle for mankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom. The classroom must and will become an arena of conflict between the old and the new. The rotten corpse of Christianity and the new faith in humanism." They hate Christianity. It stands in their way. And if you don't recognize that, brother Christian and sister Christian, you are a part of the problem. Here's what Woodrow Wilson said. And this is what he said in 1887. Listen carefully. Quote, "What one generation would resist, but eventually accept, the next generation will accept it because their parents did. And the next generation will just operate under the assumption that it has always been this way." We are at that point. We are at that point. I'll say this and I'll sit down. Every major institution in America is under the control of the liberal left. Every major institution in America that influence us, education, major media, the arts, the government.
Still you?
Huh? Oh, yeah. And the government, and then there's others that are influencing us. I'm telling you, we got a fight on our hands and we need to move.
Wow, pretty amazing.